Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking even more about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Nintendo has just revealed both important and tempting details about this game. It seems that with each passing day, Nintendo's ramping up the marketing for this release, but it goes beyond just ads that we're seeing everywhere now, but also new articles that they're publishing revealing, yes, both important and tempting details, and also new screenshots. So we have some exciting stuff to get into this time. Do you find yourself feeling tired, unable to take a good nap during the day from wherever you may be? Then perhaps you are in need of a soft, comfortable sleep mask that blocks out all light. Fortunately, Manta Sleep, the sponsor for today's video, has just that, a quality sleep mask. This sleep mask has super soft, comfy cushions that cover your eyes and block out all light. It's easy to adjust to different sizes, and it feels great to wear, and it's helped me personally fit in just a bit more rest during my days. So if you're looking to improve your sleep and energy, check out the Manta Sleep Mask using the link in the description below with my code SLEEPRESTART. And if you do so between the dates of November 19th to the 27th for an early Black Friday Cyber Monday sale, there is an additional 15% off the entire site, and you'll also get a free holiday recharge kit. Now's your chance. Now to get things started here, yesterday on Thanksgiving, various Nintendo social media channels shared a similar graphic where we see it simply says, Nintendo presents Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Now, many of you may not think this is that big of a deal, but it actually kind of is, because Nintendo does not always say Nintendo presents. When they share this line here, Nintendo presents, and then the title of a game, it typically evokes a certain extra level of confidence, something we don't see that often. Usually when Nintendo says something like this, it's some sort of big, awesome, high-quality campaign coming from them. So it shows a greater level of confidence than normal, which I think should be obvious, in my opinion, because we've seen so much about Metroid Prime 4 already from the previews and such that show just a great deal of polish and level of detail that you just don't see in games really anywhere. We've talked about this before. But a lot of people are very skeptical about Metroid Prime 4, I think because just in general, nowadays, people find negative things to talk about with pretty much everything. And there are certainly been some talking points surrounding Metroid Prime 4 over the last couple weeks that have people concerned. But I'm not concerned, because I've seen a great deal already that shows a tremendous amount of quality, but now with Nintendo sharing imagery like this, where they are saying Nintendo presents Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, that gives me just a little bit more confidence that they have confidence in what I believe is going to be an epic release coming out in less than 6 days. These are exciting times, everyone. But that is just the tip of the iceberg here. As I said in the introduction to this video, Nintendo has been releasing not just ads, but also articles and screenshots for this game. So on the Nintendo Japan website, here's one of those articles. Now this basically talks about everything you need to know before playing Metroid Prime 4, and I'm not going to go ahead and read through the entire article, but there are 3 different things pointed out here that I find to be rather curious. So for example, here they have this graphic and explanation of the 2 different types of Metroid games. You have the 2D Metroid games, and you have the first-person adventure Metroid games. Metroid and Metroid Prime. They are making the distinction here. This reminds me of how Nintendo treats both Mario and Zelda. With Mario, you have the Mario Bros. Series, the 2D Mario games, and then you have Super Mario, which is the 3D Mario games. And then for The Legend of Zelda, you have the 2D top-down Zelda games, and then you have the open-air Zelda games. So Nintendo talking about Metroid in this way shows that they have intent to continue both series, which is exciting. We expect them to continue the 2D series, but the 3D series, the first-person adventure series, there is some doubt. Metroid Prime 4 is the first one in 18 years. So there's been a concern that if this one does not succeed, perhaps it could be the end for this kind of Metroid game. Which actually brings me to the second curious point in this article, because here they share the timeline of the first-person adventure Metroid games. You have Metroid Prime 1, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, Metroid Prime Hunters, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, Metroid Prime Federation Force, and then Metroid Prime 4. Keep in mind, these dates are from the Japan timeline, right? Metroid Prime actually came out in the year 2002, and Metroid Prime 3 came out in the year 2007. Also, yeah, Metroid Prime 4 also came out 2004. It was just coming out later in Japan. But anyways, they say here, the main series up to Metroid Prime 3 Corruption revolved around the story of Phazon, an energy substance that mutates living things. But Metroid Prime 4 Beyond begins a new story, so even if you haven't played the previous titles in the series, you can still enjoy it. And so people have been talking about this point from the article, because it does seem to imply that Metroid Prime 4 is a new beginning. In other words, more Metroid Prime games are expected to follow. And this could hint as to what's going to happen with the story. The ending of Metroid Prime 4 may suggest another follow-up. But also what's important about this is that it's explaining that you do not need to play any other prior Metroid Prime games, or any Metroid games really at all. You can start fresh with Metroid Prime 4 because it's a totally new story, a new arc. So if you've been concerned or if you've been on the fence because you haven't played prior Metroid games, don't worry. Here Nintendo themselves are telling you, you don't need to have played previous titles, you can still enjoy it. Literally, their words right there. And yet, there's something else in this article that I found to be rather interesting, in terms of some new stuff here. And that new stuff is right here with this image. Here is where you can select the difficulty setting. Now, we technically had already heard about this a few weeks ago from the previews, although not many covered it. As you see here, you have an easy difficulty, a normal difficulty, and a hard difficulty. They explain, casual mode lowers enemy HP and reduces the amount of damage you take, making it recommended for those playing the Metroid Prime series for the first time, or those who want to enjoy it casually. If you're confident in your skills, try hard mode, which is unlocked after clearing the game on normal. So I'm looking forward to playing that hard mode. But what I find extra curious about this is this image where they show a Metroid with 1 nucleus, then 2 nucleus, and then 3. And I think this is curious because technically, at least from prior Metroid games, a Metroid with 1 nucleus was considered to be a mock droid, not actually a true Metroid. And yet what we've seen with Metroid Prime 4, at least from the beginning, the Metroids have 1 nucleus, so they seem to be mock droids. However, Nintendo has officially referred to them multiple times as Metroids. And so it's led many people to wonder if maybe they're just kind of retconning things or forgetting about the single nucleus mock droid. But when they share imagery like this, where they're depicting Metroids with a different amount here, which leads you to believe that there may be something else going on here, something else for us to learn and come to understand about what has changed about Metroids in Metroid Prime 4. So it's interesting to think about. Now, something else that popped up yesterday during Thanksgiving is more information about the Amiibo, and there's something here that's actually a very, very big deal. A lot of this we already knew about because Nintendo revealed the Amiibo details with the overview trailer, but there's a few new things here that I found, well, at least curious. So here they talk about the Samus and Viola Amiibo, and how when you touch the Amiibo, you can check Viola's total distance traveled. And we already knew about the changing of color, but I am very curious on how Viola will look with this Amiibo. However, with the Samus Amiibo, the single Samus Amiibo, when you use it, it actually changes the background music when you're riding Viola in Soul Valley. Soul Valley is the giant desert, so you can also change around the background music. These are simple things, but I'm also very curious about them, so I don't know if I'm going to buy the Amiibo for specifically these little features, but I'm at least going to want to look it up on YouTube, I suppose. But the big thing here is what they say about the Sylux Amiibo. Every time you touch your Amiibo, you'll hear a random line from Sylux. Keep in mind that the letters are a little off here because this is a translation. It is Sylux. And so this is a big deal because it's confirming that Sylux will have voice-acted lines in the game. Now, this has been expected by many, but now we know with certainty that Sylux is going to talk, and not just a little bit, but he's going to have several lines throughout the adventure. So what exactly is going on with Sylux? I might be putting together a big theory video on this right before the game comes out, so stay tuned for that, but clearly there is a pretty big story planned here surrounding the character. Now, if you've gone this far into the video, let me simply take this moment to point out that I do have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed already and you find yourself enjoying my videos, I would very much appreciate your support, and if you're a returning subscriber, liking, commenting still helps out a big deal. I do thank you though for clicking on and watching today's video. But let's move on to these new Metroid Prime 4 Beyond screenshots. So if you don't want to see these screenshots released by Nintendo from Nintendo Today, here's your warning. So here we are. We see that they're showing more screenshots of Samus in the Ice Belt, this ancient frozen lab. And so we see this screenshot right here, and it's just beautiful, like these beautiful lights above. It just looks cool. There's nothing here that I think is totally mind-blowing in terms of figuring out what's going on with the game. Although, the more I think about it, I consider two possibilities here. Maybe this is an elevator room, actually. Like, this could have been one giant round platform that came down from this light up here that looks almost like a giant tunnel vertically upwards. That's a possibility, actually. This could be like an underground lab. Me thinking about it even more, the shots we have seen of the ice belt, we don't see where the lab would be, so it might be underground, which is interesting to consider. And will be reminiscent of some prior Metroid games where there would be an elevator you would take to get to different areas. So there's a possibility there. The other possibility is this is actually a room where we were fighting an enemy, and we just cleared it out, and so there's a little bit of a cutscene here before we leave the room. Although, based on the perspective and how the room looks, I'm feeling more strongly about the initial theory that this is an elevator room. Now, this room is perhaps even more interesting. It's a hallway of sorts, it looks like, and what we can see here are these different pods that are housing what appear to be the ice variants of the Grievers. Now, I find this screenshot interesting for several reasons. One, we can see here that the Grievers appear to be genetically enhanced or changed around, and I've been theorizing for a while that the Grievers are actually perhaps somewhat related to the Lamorn, because the Lamorn have a similar amount of tentacles on their heads and a similar amount of limbs. And while the Lamorn have these big gems on their heads, the Grievers have a little hole where there could have been perhaps a gem placed in, but not. So these Grievers might be the last living remnants of the Lamorn, and they were genetically mutated, and now, as Samus is exploring this ancient frozen lab, they're breaking out to attack her, of course. So the theory isn't that they are Lamorn, but based off Lamorn genetically mutated into these Grievers, which are effectively abhorrent monsters. But there's a few other things I have to say about this image. These pods, I believe we've seen before. We've actually seen them on what appeared to have been a zip line on the outside area of the ice belt. So perhaps these are being carried around to other places, which is kind of scary to think about. And the more I think about it, it has me wondering, why would the Lamorn have been genetically mutating themselves, if that's indeed what's going on here, into these crazy beasts? What was the purpose? We don't know, but the idea is that the Lamorn are now extinct. They are no longer around. We are exploring an ancient civilization, a civilization that is no more. We are exploring the remnants of the civilization. So perhaps these Grievers have something to do with that. And one more thing I'll point out about this image that other people have been mentioning is that it looks somewhat similar to that banner art we saw years ago from Retro Studios' page that we felt at the time was teasing something about Metroid Prime 4. And it is a long hallway, so I guess there is a similarity there, but I feel like that's where the similarities kind of stop. Like, that's what it is. It's just a long hallway. There are going to be hallways in Metroid Prime 4 like other Metroid games. I don't think there's really too much to that. However, I will say this. Something that has become apparent. That shadow, which we did theorize years ago, could be a hint towards Sylux being in the game. Now that we know about Sylux's design, his very high shoulders, his shock coil arm, that does appear to be the shadow that we see there and not actually Samus's shadow. So they were indeed teasing Sylux many years ago with that banner art, it looks like. And I'll tell you this, if we do see Sylux chasing us down in dark hallways like this in the Ice Belt area, which, you know, if power runs out, they could make this into a very scary environment, not too different from what happens in the lab areas for Phendrana Drifts in Metroid Prime 1, also an icy environment with a lab. Yeah, maybe they could do something like that again, except this time you're being chased around by a hunter who wants to kill you, which could make things a little bit scarier. So that's a cool possibility. Of course, with all these scary grievers in these pods, you may not need Sylux himself to be chasing you around. We'll see what happens. Moving on to this screenshot here, it's less scary and more so beautiful. We can see this ancient Lamorn statue frozen over, and we see these little flying creatures around the room. I don't make much of this room beyond it just sort of depicting the ancient architecture of the Lamorn and how special of a species they were, very Chozo-like, very intelligent, perhaps a species that pursued peace, although things did go awry, so maybe not. That's something we're going to learn about as we get deeper into the game. But yes, this room feels a lot like what we've seen in prior Metroid games, where there is this ancient, intelligent species that has all this technology and architecture left behind that we'll be exploring. This area seems like it has almost like a mystical-like vibe. Perhaps it's a room where there is a really cool power-up, or it's at least going to lead to a very cool power-up. And then in this room, it's less so about a power-up, although I do feel like we see a missile expansion over here, and more so about whatever's going on here in the middle of the room. It's hard to say. It looks kind of intimidating. Like, it looks like this could even have been like a surgery room of some sort, or an engineering room. Maybe this is where you could have placed, like, perhaps the artifact, for example, and they were working on things here. This is a lab, after all, so the idea of there being experimentation, or surgery, or machinery building something else more complex, like, that's definitely the vibe I'm getting here. What exactly it was, that part I'm really unsure of. Maybe it was simply a surgery room where they're genetically mutating different Lamorn to become grievers. It's possible, and it's definitely a darker room. It's evoking a little bit more of a scarier vibe than some of the other rooms we talked about. So yes, I definitely am left thinking that this ice lab is going to get pretty scary. And that is the extent of the Metroid Prime 4 news we have to discuss today. But with the way things have been going, I'm sure there will be more very soon. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, you can use my code SLEEPRESTART when checking the link in the description below for the Manta Sleep Mask. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.